great to see you all. Why don't you come in a little bit? Come in a little closer. I'm going to cheat in here. We've got a good crowd, but we're spread out too far. Come on in. Well, thanks for being here. You know, I always start this way. I'm so gratified, I'm so grateful, and I'm so humble that you took time out of your day to come here and celebrate our rights in this state, in this country. So thanks for being here, thanks for coming out, and every time you guys gather here to talk about liberty, and talk about freedom, and talk about fundamental principles that make us strong, I will be here. So thank you for coming out. Thank you. You know, I was reading over last night the federal Constitution and the state of Washington's Constitution, and you know, so much of what the other speakers have said so far is right. There's a lot to be concerned about. There's a lot that's gone wrong with public policy in our country, in our state. There's a lot of abuse and corruption of the essential values that make this state, make this country strong. But when I read those documents, when I read the Constitution, I feel better. I feel more optimistic. I feel stronger that the foundation of this country and the foundation of this state is unique in the world for recognizing the value and the dignity of every human being. There is no other system that is as good at protecting you and allowing you to protect your own as the United States, and I would add the state of Washington. It's a wonderful thing. People often forget how firmly our state is founded on principles of individual liberty and individual rights. I mentioned to some of you before, you probably heard me say it, the state constitution is structured a little differently than the federal. Essentially, in the state constitution, the Bill of Rights comes at the beginning. Article 1 is a list of about 30-odd declarations of right that apply to your life, much as the Bill of Rights in the federal Constitution does. And the first declared right in that section of that Article 1 says all political power is inherent in the people. And government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. And most importantly, the last bit, is established to protect and maintain individual rights. The purpose of government. This is the first statement in the state constitution. The purpose of government is to protect and maintain your individual rights. That includes your individual right to carry a firearm. That includes your individual right to own property. That includes your individual right to speak your mind peaceably. And it includes your individual right to the fruit of your labor. These are things that are so important and create a system, a broad system that allows for real value to be recognized and allows for the true price and cost of things to be recognized that no other centrally planned system can match. It's that focus on the individual right that is the core, fundamental principle that brings us all together here and makes this a great place to live. When you go on looking at Article 1 of the state constitution, the other initial statements, here's the flag, and here's me talking about the Constitution. It talks about, it recognizes the federal Constitution as the supreme law of the land, which is right and good. It recognizes the essential importance of due process, saying that no one's life, liberty, or property can be taken without due process of law. And I put it to you that we forget about essential values like this when we allow the incremental administrative deep state creep to affect the way we live, to price up our housing, our transportation, our education in an incremental, never-ending, never-sleeping way. We have to remember that that due process of law is a protection for all of us, to check on the excesses of the bureaucratic state. When you go on reading Article 1 of the state constitution, you'll go on to see that it has some very interesting, detailed language on matters of conscience, on matters of exercise of religion, on matters, frankly, of eminent domain. There's a section in Article 1 which speaks in detail about how the state can use eminent domain to take property and properly compensate someone when they do that. When you read on down that Article 1, you get a little farther down, you get to sections 23 and 24. 23 says that no bill of attainder or ex post facto law or law that interferes with existing contractual rights shall ever be passed by the state of Washington. Well, that's one we need to keep in mind. We're doing things like that in Olympia all the time. We are passing bills into law that retroactively make activities illegal. And that is right there in Article 1 of our state constitution, that we're not supposed to do that. Following that section 23 under Article 1 comes section 24, which some of you may know. Section 24 of Article 1 in our state constitution is essentially our state's Second Amendment. But in many ways, section 24 speaks to the right to own and carry firearms even more clearly than the federal constitution does. For one thing, section 24 states plainly that the right to keep and bear arms is an individual right, not a collective right. And that from that from that individual right and the exercise of that individual right comes security for the state. That, our security broadly for our neighbors, for our friends, for everyone who we live among here, and for the state in general, is something that evolves from the individual right to protect yourself. And to me, that is an essential concept. The externalities, the broad values, the big things that make this a great place to live and a great place to work come out of the respect for the individual rights of protection and self-ownership and self-actualization. So our Constitution is wonderfully clear on this. And as you continue down that Article 1, the Bill of Rights, you get toward the end, and there's Section 32. And Section 32 is a very interesting piece of the state constitution to me. That one says that a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the maintaining individual rights and a free government. So the frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. I think when you're feeling down, when you're feeling low, when you're worried about what they're doing in Olympia and what they're doing in DC, and how bad policy makes housing more expensive, how bad policy makes gasoline more expensive, how bad policy destroys jobs, and how bad policy infringes on your right to carry a sidearm. Remember that frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. I think that's what this event is beginning to do here. This is our frequent recurrence. We are recurring to our fundamental principles. And thank you. That is the cure. That is the solution. That's the thing that will make all of us stronger and all of us happier. And that's the thing that will make our government in Olympia more transparent and more effective for us. It's what will make our government in DC more transparent and more effective for us. Because that's why those governments exist. They don't exist for their own interests. They don't exist to affect, broad social experimentation. Those governments exist to protect your individual liberties and your individual rights. And thank you. And when they stop doing that, they have failed. When they stop protecting you, they are no longer acting as they should act. They are no longer serving the purpose that they should serve.
Portland Police!
That's one. But in all of this, my message to you is one of optimism and of hope. Every time we gather like this, we're shining a light on the abuse. We're shining a light on the corruption. We're shining a light on the inefficiency and the bureaucratic excess that is in the nature of any organized system. But we're the cure. We're the solution. You are. And I am channeling you in Olympia. And I am, when I channel you, to talk to our federal reps. And if we put the pressure on the system, if we shine the light on the system, we will be able to get better results. We're seeing it already. We're seeing it with the changing our federal wildlife policy so that we can get the sea lions under control and help restore our salmon runs here. We're seeing it at the state level, where we're fighting the good fight against excessive central planning and these restrictive covenants, the Growth Management Act, the Shorelines Management Act, these bills, these systems that choke honest, decent development of property, of housing. You're seeing it when we turn the tide on that terrible Hearst decision, which would have restrained and constrained your ability to drill a well on land that you own. You're seeing it, how we turned the tide on that awful Public Records Act that would have exempted the legislature from public records disclosure that applies to every agency and other government entity. So we're turning the corner. We're shining the light. You have helped me do that. I have helped others in Olympia do it. It's really just starting. We've just begun the reforms that we will do in the next few years. So I promise you, everything you've heard here about the troubles that we face with our state government and our federal government, those risks are all real. Those troubles are all true. But we have the fix, and the fix is you. It starts with you, and it ends with you. Always keep that in mind. It's not about us up here. Thanks so much. God bless you all. I love you guys. Keep turning out and keep doing this. Thanks so much.
Free thought for free people.